All right, this conference is now being recorded, so we're going to start. I want to start by saying a big thank you to everyone who's joining us today. I know that some of us have had disruptions to our schedule recently, and this is not the original date we had planned for this call, but for everyone who's able to join us live, I really appreciate it. And for everyone who is viewing this recording after the fact, I also thank you very much for doing your due diligence and watching this recording later. We're going to go ahead and jump right in with Farm to School 101. I'm going to linger on this screen for a little while, just to make sure that anyone who is viewing the presentation but maybe having audio issues is able to see us. These are some common errors when we're dealing with this platform with ReadyTalk. So just keep in mind that if you're having any trouble, one of the most frequent solutions that works is to switch your web browser, especially if you're using Internet Explorer. Using Firefox or Google Chrome usually gives you a little bit more success. And then if at any point you have trouble with ReadyTalk, maybe you get logged out and you need to log back in, or you're having trouble with the audio continuously, you can always call their helpline at 800-843-9166, and they'll be able to assist you. They are very friendly. As far as how we're going to work on this webinar, we want to hear from you, but you know that there's no way for the audience to speak where their voice is heard. Fortunately, we have the chat function. If you have something that you want to know, something you're curious about, or if you're having an issue, then you can leave us a message in the chat. And if, as we're going along in this presentation, you have any questions about the content, put a message and it'll be flagged, and we'll be coming back to answer these questions at the end of the presentation. There will be a Q&A at the end, so please feel free to ask whatever question may come to mind. Also note that this webinar will be recorded and we'll be sharing it later. We'll be sending out an email to all of the participants to make sure that they're able to review the webinar. And we'll also be sending out a PDF of the slides, and we'll also be making available any resources that we show in this presentation. You'll be able to access anything that we say that will be available to you later. Here's the webinar training schedule, what it looks like for this week on the rescheduled timeline. This today is Farm to School 101. We'll be in this webinar for an hour until 3 o'clock. And then tomorrow will be the reviewer training. Note that the reviewer training tomorrow is a little bit earlier than the other two webinars. It'll begin at 12:30. If you're a reviewer, we look forward to seeing you there. And if you're a team lead, we'll see you on Wednesday from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. And those webinars will also be recorded. So if you have a conflict, that's okay. You'll be able to view the presentation after the fact. This is the path we're going to take while we're presenting on Farm to School 101 today. We're going to talk a little bit about what is Farm to School, what are the benefits of Farm to School, and what does the Office of Community Food Systems do? What are their roles? What are their functions? How do they contribute to the Farm to School landscape? And then at the end, we'll be taking questions. So as I said, post your questions in the chat. We really look forward to answering them. All right, so from here, I'm going to pass the baton to my coworker, Andrea, and she is going to take you guys on this journey through what is Farm to School.
Hi everyone, Andrea here. Andrea Alma, formerly known as Andrea Northup, in the process of that transition, so bear with me there. And looking forward to talking with you a little bit about what is Farm to School. I know many of you have been Farm to School grant reviewers before. Many of you work in the field, so you're thinking, gosh, why do I need to listen to a Farm to School 101 presentation? Well, bear with us. You might hear a new great example or hear about a new concept or framework that takes your knowledge to the next level. So we're excited to share with you. Okay. So what is Farm to School? One of the ways that I find is really helpful to frame it in my mind is the 3 C's model: classroom, community, and cafeteria. Cafeteria meaning we want local food to be served on the school lunch lines across schools across the United States. Classroom, we want We want to be weaving food, nutrition, and agriculture into everyday classroom lessons. And community. We want to be engaging community members in this farm-to-school process. And honestly, school gardens kind of fit squarely in the middle of this 3 C's model. A school garden can supply food to the cafeteria. It can be an educational classroom in itself. And school gardens sure do tend to engage the community where they're situated. So not only are we talking about the process of actually serving local food in school meals, but we're also talking about our youngest eaters, so youth who participate in the Child and Adult Care Food Program, which oversees meals in a lot of our child care centers and family daycare homes. We're also talking about the summer meal programs, where a lot of children across the country receive free meals when school is out. We're talking about school gardens, certainly, as well as some of that hands-on education that might happen in the actual classroom or in the cafeteria. Farm to school might involve a farm field trip, so getting kids out to see where their food comes from, and even bringing in farmers to teach kids how food is grown and help them appreciate where it came from. So as I just reviewed here, farm to school can encompass all sorts of things, and I'm going to give you just a few tangible examples of some farm to school programs from my region over here, the Mountain Plains region. All right. So this is a picture from Ferguson, Missouri. This school district really wanted to engage high school youth in culinary job training. So they partnered that effort with their Farm to School program, teaching high schoolers how to process fruits and vegetables for further use during the school year by their school meal program. So in the summer, knife skills and culinary techniques were taught to students while they preserved products like onions here for the school meal program. They were a Farm to School grantee back in 2016. Let's see here. The Intertribal Buffalo Council was a 2015 Farm to School grantee. They worked to incorporate some of both the traditional heritage and importance of the buffalo in our Native American tribes out here on the plains, and they worked with food service directors and food service staff to find school-scaled recipes that incorporated buffalo so that it could be served in the classroom, in the cafeteria. So we had both that educational component as well as the actual sourcing and serving of the buffalo in the school meals. Here's an example from Livingston, Montana. This high school wanted to find some ways to engage high school youth around biology and science in a very hands-on way. So they actually created an aquaponics system growing fruits and vegetables in conjunction with fish, teaching all sorts of lessons about pH and nutrient cycles, and really bringing those lessons to life. And actually, these students are selling this fish both to restaurants in the area as well as the school meal program. So full circle. And these folks were also a 2016 Farm to School grantee. For my last example here, I actually saw Natalie from Greeley Evans on the line, who is reviewing grants this year. So hi, Natalie. Natalie is the Farm to School coordinator and the Food Hub coordinator for Greeley Evans School District. They are in a very agricultural region of the state of Colorado, actually one of the most agriculturally productive counties in the United States. And so their Farm to School program is based very heavily on working directly with the many farmers who surround their school district. So they're moving lots of product onto their school meal trays, and thus supporting the agricultural community that many of their students belong to. So these couple of examples just were to show you that this notion of a farm-to-school program that incorporates the classroom, the cafeteria, and the community can look very different depending on what a school district and a community's goals are, what their needs are, and what they hope to get out of their farm-to-school program. I think you'll find this quite often when you're reading through your farm-to-school grant application. Each one looks different, and each one reflects the unique community that it is aimed to serve. So just to bring the point home here, oftentimes we think of farm to school as just getting that local food into the school meals, but we've found that these programs are more impactful if they also contain that component around education and community engagement. So when we're reviewing farm to school grant applications, we really want to make sure that they're encompassing both of those different aspects of farm to school. So now we're going to have our first little quiz here, just to make sure that you're all paying attention. Our Farm to School program serves schools that participate in the National School Lunch Program. Which are the 5 components of a reimbursable lunch through the National School Lunch Program? You can enter your response in the chat box, and we'll see how everyone does. So just type it right in the Q&A. All right, I'm seeing a number of responses coming in. A lot of B's. Oh man, I can't fool you all. You are correct. B is the response. So in order for a school meal to be counted in the National School Lunch Program, it has to have these following components in it. Now what that means is if a school is participating in the National School Lunch Program and they serve a meal that incorporates all of these components, basically they'll get a reimbursement based on the income level of that child from the state agency that oversees the National School Lunch Program in their state. So here in Colorado, that would be the Colorado Department of Education. The exciting thing is any one of these meal components can actually be a local food or incorporate a local food. So what we're looking for in our school, in our farm to school grant applications are applicants who are trying to incorporate local foods across the tray. Oftentimes we think of local fruits and vegetables, but oftentimes we're seeing a lot of creativity around grains, legumes, meats, and dairy, and a lot of those items can actually be served locally year-round. Now, when schools are purchasing food for their National School Lunch Program meals, they have to follow a number of rules. We call these the procurement rules and regulations. Now, you as a reviewer don't necessarily have to know the ins and outs of these procurement rules, but you may see applicants referring to a request for proposals or trying to get bids from different farmers or producers in order to supply a school meal program. So hopefully you'll see some references to incorporating local foods while following those National School Lunch Program rules and regulations. So how is the food actually getting from farms and different suppliers to school districts? And oftentimes we're seeing this happen through the school's regular distribution channels. So let's say they purchase primarily from a large distributor. Many of that food can actually be local. But there are a number of options here that are listed on the slide. For example, a school may get local products directly from a farm, and that is absolutely acceptable. We're also seeing schools that are purchasing or serving food from their school gardens or farms, another very viable option. So you may see many of these different channels by which a school can procure local food mentioned in the applications you're reviewing. Now wait a minute, what does local actually mean when we're talking about local food being purchased by schools across the country? Actually, it's up to the school itself to define what local means to them in order to accomplish the goals that they have for their farm-to-school program. So some schools may say that local for them is defined as within 100 miles or within their county. And honestly, this definition can change, and it does change for schools depending on what products they're talking about or depending on what season it is. So USDA allows schools to have the flexibility to define what local means to them. It definitely takes a village to make an integrated farm-to-school program happen, one that incorporates the classroom, cafeteria, and community. And here listed on this slide are a number of different players who work together in concert to make farm-to-school programs happen. And you'll notice that a number of the applications you review involve many different players. And we think that's a good thing. We often see when many partners are working together to make farm-to-school happen, the programs are more sustainable and are more reflective of the true community need. So that was just an overview of what a farm-to-school program can look like. I'd like to switch gears and talk just a minute about the benefits of farm-to-school. So why do we even care to fund these farm-to-school programs? Well, it turns out that there are many benefits when kids are eating local food at school and learning about its benefits. A number of studies have been published where we've proven a lot of these different benefits of farm-to-school. For example, school meal programs see a boost in their participation by students when they're offering a comprehensive farm-to-school program. Children are willing to try more new foods and have a positive experience with the process of tasting new things when they've been exposed to a farm-to-school program. So if you're curious about some of these benefits and the studies behind them, definitely visit our website. We have the link listed later on. All right, here's your next quiz question. When a school spends $1 on food for school meals, how much additional money is circulated in the local economy as a result of that local purchase? All right, I'm seeing some of the responses come in. All right, a few D's, a few A's, a few C's, maybe more C's than anything else at this point. We have a D. I'll wait another minute here for folks to weigh in. All right, the answer is C. So a number of studies have been done on the economic impacts of local purchases in school meal programs. And we actually find that when a school, let's say, spends $1 on a couple of local apples, actually an additional $1.40 to $2.60 is recirculated in that economy when that apple grower hires a new staff member, or when that apple grower purchases inputs such as new crates or different equipment for the orchard from a local vendor. So we're really excited about this economic multiplier that farm-to-school programs tend to have when schools purchase local food. And if you look about that economic multiplier from a national perspective, we see that schools spending funds on local food drives over $1 billion in local economic activity. And we're excited that farm-to-school is a big driver when it comes to supporting local economies. So a few key takeaways here. Like I mentioned, farm-to-school programs are effective when they combine those 3 C's into a comprehensive program. So it's not just enough for a local apple to show up on a lunch tray. It's helpful when that apple when a student eating that apple is engaged in education, perhaps they're growing apples in their school garden, and they understand and appreciate where it comes from. Then they're more apt to actually eat it. Partnerships are key for farm-to-school success. We want to see applications that have a lot of different and varied partners involved. And finally, farm-to-school programs can look different in every community. I'm sure you'll see this when you review the applications, but there will be no cookie-cutter farm-to-school program. Ideally, the program will affect that community need and community priorities. Okay, so I'm going to switch gears now and spend a little bit of time talking about how USDA is involved in supporting farm-to-school across the country. So actually, in the Richard B. Russell National School Lunch Act, there's a section that creates a farm-to-school program at USDA. And at USDA, we have 3 main priorities for our support of farm-to-school. Number 1, distribute grants. You all are a part of this process. This is our USDA Farm-to-School grant program. Provide training and technical assistance to farm-to-school stakeholders. I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. And disseminate research and data on farm-to-school programs. We largely do this through our farm-to-school census, which we'll also mention in a minute. Now, grants, training and technical assistance, and research. Why are we doing all of this? Well, it's to support our vision, such that every child in every USDA child nutrition program has access to local food every day. So that's our big picture vision for school meals and child care meals and summer meals across the country. So when it comes to technical assistance, a lot of that is centered on resources that we create and disseminate and train on. So you'll find a lot of our fact sheets and procurement guides, things like that on our website. Definitely a good idea to browse some of those resources on our website if you're unfamiliar with them before you start the review process. You might find some great information that might come up during some of the applications that you read if you're interested. Another great resource that we have available in the training and technical assistance realm is our Farm-to-School Toolkit. And this is a really comprehensive set of modules that helps walk schools through the process of getting started with a farm-to-school program. So if a school is looking to begin, this is a great resource to help them. Now, we're going to mention kind of the structure of the Office of Community Food Systems, but our farm-to-school regional leads, I being one of them, work to disseminate a lot of these resources out in the regions, working with a lot of our partners and conducting trainings and spreading the word about farm-to-school. So I'm going to pass the baton back to Travis, and he's going to pick it up talking about our research and evaluation, and then get back to the grants.
Thank you, Andrea. And let me just say I really enjoyed you keeping our audience on their toes with those quizzes and teaching us some interesting facts, so I really appreciate that. And I'm going to pick back up and start by talking briefly about research and evaluation, which is another one of the functions of the Office of Community Food Systems. And really one of the biggest projects we have going on in this area is the Farm-to-School Census. This is just a comprehensive survey that goes out to school food authorities all over the country, and then we collect their responses and see what types of activities are going on, where are the farm-to-school programs happening, and gathering a lot of data and a lot of information about what the landscape of farm-to-school is in the United States. And the applicants are you're probably going to see on a lot of applications the use of farm-to-school census data. So we wanted to mention this here to make sure that you had seen it before and had some kind of familiarity with it. We're going through an interesting time with the census right now, where the current census website is being archived, but that information will still be available. And then when the next census comes out and is published, that will be on a new website. So we're very much excited about that. And now I'm going to spend a lot more time talking about the Farm-to-School Grant Program, which is what has brought us all here to this training today, and what we are really excited to dive into and get to work reviewing applications for. This is just a little bit of the scope of the Farm-to-School Grant Program. Our first awards were made in the fiscal year 2013, and since then the program has reached all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and then the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and for the first time last year, Guam. We added Guam as another territory that has been reached by this program, for a total amount of awards of about $30 million. But we've received requests from over 1,900 applicants seeking about $140 million. So if you look at the big difference between how much money has been awarded, about $30 million, and how much has been requested, $140 million, you'll see that you'll get an idea of what the selectiveness is of this grant, that we're receiving hundreds of requests each year for millions and millions of dollars, but we're only able to fund a fraction of those. And that's where your job is very much important, and where we really need your help in reviewing these applications. One of the factors that helps us make awards when we're deciding on who's going to receive grant funding for each fiscal year are the grant priorities. And these change a little bit from year to year, but are generally pretty similar. This year we're prioritizing applications from school districts, from Indian tribal organizations or others that serve Native communities, submissions that reach more than one school, and projects that serve a high proportion of children eligible for free or reduced price meals. And this really gets to the heart of what Andrea was talking about with farm-to-school programs, how they're used to stimulate local economies, and we're very much interested in how we can use these priorities to align to the work that the Farm-to-School Grant Program does. There are three types, and when you're applying, try not to get overwhelmed by this slide. When you're reviewing applications, your group will only review one type of application. You'll only review one of all your applications you review will be planning or implementation or training. We won't ask you to go back and forth between application types. But a brief description of each. Planning grants are for people who don't really have any experience with farm-to-school programs, or they have very limited experience with farm-to-school programs. They maybe have seen a school in an adjacent county or an adjacent school district implementing some kind of farm-to-school program, and they're interested, but they aren't entirely sure where to start. So the grant funding is a little bit of it's a little bit of a foundation for them to build on and give them the ability to dedicate some resources to planning and putting a lot of effort into deciding what they're going to do with their farm-to-school program. And you can see some of the potential activities there of collecting data, engaging stakeholders, building a team, testing ideas for the first time, identifying gaps, and creating an action plan. And that is a very real distinction between implementation grants. Implementation grants are for applicants who have experience with farm-to-school activities. Maybe they have started farm-to-school activities at a few schools in their district. Maybe they're a nonprofit that has partnered with farm-to-school programs previously, but they are beyond the planning stage at this point. They've already planned, they've already begun performing farm-to-school activities, and now they're in the implementation phase. And so we give them, these grantees are given a little bit of funding to expand their operations, or you can see some of the activities there, procuring additional local food operating service projects, promotional programs, or curriculum development in school gardens. And the final type of grant that may be awarded is the training grant, which is to have organizations come and experience the training, and the grantee would be hosting the training and kind of teaching or guiding about farm-to-school practices. And you can see some of the examples there: culinary skills, local procurement methods, school garden development, strategic planning, finding local food. So the attendees at these training events would be learning skills or information that they can then take back and use to work on their own farm-to-school program. The next few slides are about what projects may involve, and we've kind of grouped what projects could involve into a few umbrellas. And the first is local procurement. And you can see each of these bullets describes some sort of activity that's related to local procurement. This is finding out what providers are in your area, what producers you might want to recruit as what you might consider local and want to get those foods into the school lunch program or into the curriculum, and analyzing your capacity to bring in those foods and store them. Do you have student interest? Are students going to be excited about finding out about local foods? Are they prepared to get these foods in their cafeterias? And then you see at the bottom some key potential stakeholders, which is kind of answering the question of who are the people that should be considered on these types of applications when local procurement is really like the central strategy. Next are projects involving school gardens, and there are a lot of different factors that go into designing a school garden, and you see some of the bullets here that are what grantees might consider when they're planning or implementing all of those different ideas into action. And people can do different things, or grantees rather can do different things with school gardens. They can use them to bring schools into the lunch program, or to use them for teaching students about, they could use as like a science lesson to teach students about the life cycles of plants. The garden, it could also be used as like a work skills type of program, so that students can go and work in the garden. They can find out what it takes to harvest plants and store them, package them, and get a feel of what types of interactions, what types of actions take place when you're growing food. And this is an exciting opportunity for a lot of grantees. And you see again at the bottom some of the key stakeholders who may take part in this type of activity. And then the last chief umbrella that we've sort of grouped all of the types of projects under are experiential activities and curriculum. And this is similar to what I was mentioning earlier. If you want to, if your teachers are training students or teaching students about what types of plants grow locally, what types of plants are used in agriculture, if the teachers are bringing food into the classroom or bringing products from the garden into the classroom. And again, some key potential stakeholders here are the school administration, teachers who may be using products from local procurement or from school gardens in their classroom, and then support organizations like nonprofits, local producers, those types of groups. And I'll talk a little more specifically about what the Office of Community Food Systems, who we are, and give you an idea of what our roles are here at the national office and in the regions. This is the national office staff. Some of you may be familiar with members of our staff, and we have had some additions to our staff recently. Our director is Aaron Healy. I am there on the bottom left, Travis Hearn. I work in the grant program. We have Tracy Moe is our acting senior technical advisor. She just began today and will be with us for part of the review process. Aaron Heisem is working on training and technical assistance centered around the school lunch program and the summer food service program. And then Robert is another recent addition to our team. He began around the same time I did, who works in communications, evaluation, and technical assistance centering on CACFP. And we are based in Alexandria, Virginia. All right, a pop quiz. How many USDA Farm to School regional leads are there across the country? So you can enter your message in your response in the chat box, and then we'll move on to a map, and I can show you where all of these regional leads can be found. All right, I'm starting to see some answers come through. All right, if you said B, then you are correct today. Now you may notice on this map that I'm showing that we have some faces missing. That's true. We are currently don't have regional leads present in the Northeast Regional Office or the Mid-Atlantic Regional Office, but you can send any questions about those regions through the Farm to School inbox, farmtoschool@usda.gov, and those questions will be addressed. And there are 7 regions, which is important. There are 7 regions, which is important to note. And I'll go through clockwise, starting with Samantha Benjamin Kirk in the Southeast region. She is stationed in Atlanta, Georgia, and serves those states in green. And then Rachel Spencer is in the Southwest Regional Office, based out of Dallas. She serves the states that are in yellow. Juliana Arnett is in the Western Regional Office and based in San Francisco. She serves the states in blue. Andrea, who we heard from earlier on the phone, works with the Mountain Plains Regional Office. She is based out of Denver and serves the states that are in green. And Jenna Siegel is the Midwest Regional Office Regional Lead. She's based in Chicago and serves the states that are in pink. All right, that brings us to the end of our presentation. If there are any questions, enter them in the chat box. We are happy to help you in any way that we can. Please don't hesitate or hold back. We're happy to have your questions, and hopefully we can provide some excellent answers to them. While we're still waiting for questions to come in, Andrea, did you have any additional remarks that you wanted to make here at the end?
I don't think so, other than if folks really want to, if folks are feeling like Farm to School is a new concept for them, definitely check out some of the resources on our website. We even have some webinars that you could look at. And definitely don't hesitate to reach out to your Farm to School regional lead if you have any questions, whether it's about Farm to School in general or about the review process. Just reach out to your regional lead and I'm sure they'll be able to help you.
Thanks, Andrea. We did get a question come in whether we'll be distributing copies of the PowerPoint, and I'd like to say that yes, we will. We've recorded this presentation, and we'll send out the presentation itself, but we will also send out a PDF of the slides that we use. So any of the information that maybe we didn't stay on a slide long enough for you, or you were in the middle of reading when we changed slides, you'll still be able to get that information that will be available to you. Phyllis asks, are stipends associated with the readings for the grants? And no, this is a volunteer opportunity. We expect the review process to require approximately 40 hours spread across 4 weeks, but there is no stipend or compensation for a review. We really appreciate the time from all of our volunteers who are taking time out of their schedules to help us choose grantees. Another issue that I would like to address is that the materials, any of the materials we discussed today, are going to be available during the review process. You will have access to the request for applications, which is where grantees get information about the program before they apply. We definitely expect everybody to have taken a look at that before they started reviewing, and anything that we think you might like to look at, we will be distributing it. The slides I showed earlier with the projects that involve headers, those will be available also when we begin the review process. We got another question about whether tomorrow's review training will also be recorded. That is a great question, and I am going to use that opportunity to advance us to the next slide, actually. Both remaining webinars will also be recorded. The reviewer training webinar tomorrow will take place from 12:30 to 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and the team lead training on Wednesday will take place at this same time as today's training, from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. We'll be recording those trainings, and we'll be sending everybody who attended a link to access them. You should have definitely received a link by the end of the week. We're going to do our absolute best to turn these recordings around and get them to you as quickly as possible. Okay, I still have my eye on the chat box in case anybody wants to add an additional question, but we did get another question. The most recent question is, will these be completed through G5? If you could email us, farmtoschool@usda.gov. I'm not sure I fully understand your question, but I will do my best to find an answer for you, or get you an answer later today. For those of us on the wait list, when might we hear if we will be reviewers? Thank you very much for asking that question. That's an excellent question. If you're on the wait list, you should know by the end of this week whether you will be a reviewer. We are going to try to get out teams as quickly as possible, but with the recent disruption to the schedule, we're very aware that some people may no longer be able to commit to the time required to review applications. So we are expecting backup reviewers to play a very important role, and we're hoping that we will have people available to step in if someone does choose that they can no longer help with the review process. But the answer to your question, long story short, is by the end of the week, hopefully. Okay, I'm still looking at the chat box, so please don't be shy if you have any more questions. I do want to use this opportunity here at the end of the presentation to plug the Office of Community Systems e-letter, The Dirt, which is an exciting resource for anybody who's interested in farm-to-school activities. You can use this to stay up to date with any news that's coming out of the Office of Community Food Systems. If you're interested in the farm-to-school census, there will be announcements related to it in there. There will be announcements related to the grant timeline in The Dirt. This is where we eventually announce the next application for farm-to-school grants. It's just an exciting letter to receive, and it comes in about once a month. And so it isn't going to overwhelm your mailbox, but you'll be excited to get all of the wealth of resources that it offers each time that it does come in. Okay. We are winding down. If you have any questions, maybe you think of them after we conclude, you can email us at farmtoschool@usda.gov. That's farmtoschool@U as in United, S as in States, D as in Department, and A as in Agriculture.gov. farmtoschool@usda.gov. Deanna, I see your question about priorities and how those priorities will be determined. Those priorities are determined after the review process is done. That's a step that's considered by the selection officials. So that's not something that the reviewers will have to worry about. We have tried to simplify it as much as possible because we know that it is a hefty time commitment. So you don't need to, the reviewers don't need to think too hard about the priorities that will all be taken care of in program office once we receive your scores. All right, and with that, I am going to end the meeting. I want to say, again, a very big thank you to everybody who was able to attend today. We will do our best to get the recording out to you as quickly as possible, and we're very excited to have you on board.